Okay, good morning, everybody. Let me be one of the first to welcome you to Dreamforce. We appreciate you taking the time over the next few days and sharing that precious time with us. My name is Bhavit Desai. I work in the Customer Success Cloud at Salesforce, and I focus on CPQ and billing. That's my area of focus. I'm joined today by Edwin Flores from Accenture, who's going to briefly introduce himself, and then we'll move on to the actual content.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Edwin Flores, and I am a manager within the Accenture quote-to-cash practice, and I'm a Salesforce CPQ solution architect.
Thanks, Edwin. So many of you have seen this slide, and you're going to see the slide many, many times over the next few days. We are a publicly traded company, and so I just want to remind you that if you do make buying decisions, please make them based on content that's available today, right? So it's not future functionality, but focus on what's available in the product today. So with that, I wanted to take this time to thank everybody. Thank you all for being here first thing on a Tuesday morning to listen to us talk about CPQ and billing. Very exciting topic. Thank you for being customers of Salesforce, and thank you for being here if you're interested in looking at Salesforce itself. Before I get started, I just wanted to ask quickly, how many of you are looking to implement Salesforce CPQ? And how many of you have actually started that process? Wow. So this is a great crowd. So you're at the right spot then. Edwin's got some great experience deploying CPQ and billing at many other customers, and so he'll give you very specific things about what it means from an implementation standpoint. Let me start off with something that you've probably heard a lot, Salesforce talk about a lot, which is our fourth industrial revolution. We are currently in a revolution that's triggered by intelligence. Intelligence is really driving the way our customers and businesses offer products and services. Computing, intelligent algorithms, and a level of connected devices now bring a possibility of things that we couldn't do 2 years ago. So imagine now, while I'm doing my laundry, at a push of a button, I can order more laundry detergent if I'm running out of it. Not something that we could do 2 years ago. And so this technology is really pushing businesses to evolve and change the way they offer products and services to their customers. What does that mean? What it really means is it's not something that's new to us. We've always focused on our customers. Customer relationship is going to be critical for the success of businesses. What's different now, though, is no longer are the customers buying a product from you and being done. What they're looking to do is buy a relationship and an outcome, right? So they're looking to engage you for a specific outcome. We offer these products now more as a subscription basis. So when the customer's happy, they continue to renew that subscription. But the minute they decide we're not offering them the needs that they require, they move on. And so it's critical for us to innovate. Innovate the way we provide products to the customers, innovate the pricing methods that we use, and innovate the actual technology and the functionality that we're providing. Because our customers are going to have to adapt, right? So that's the world we live in now. We've moved on from that single purchase to a pay-as-you-go model. While that transformation is amazing, it's also extremely challenging, right? So when we talk to our customers, we hear a lot about just the kind of key challenges they face when they go through this change. It's not just a simple implementation of a system. What we're looking at here is truly business transformation, right? So it does impact people, process, and systems. And the challenge we've seen is a lot of these systems that we're working with, these legacy systems, can't really accommodate the kinds of things that we're looking for. So something as simple as a customer asking you to change the contract or amend a contract with a subscription on it now takes a lot more time. It's a manual process. What we at Salesforce have done is focused on helping work through that recurring business, that subscription-based business, and make that flow extremely seamless for our customers. One of the key facts here is 70% of these large projects tend to fail. And so between Edwin and I, we'll talk a little bit about what are the key things that really drive that success of these projects. Unlike your traditional Salesforce deployments, CPQ is different. It's a different set of people that you're working with. it's a different set of people that are impacted on the back end. So we're talking about finance, we're talking about the sales deal desk, and so on. So it's a very different group of people that we're working with here. So with that, I'm just going to quickly highlight the 3 key areas that we have today that we'd like to focus on. The first one is pretty simple, just getting yourself organized. One of the biggest failures that we've seen in this area is not engaging the right people in the projects. Unlike your typical Sales Cloud projects, we're talking about bringing in pricing, we're talking about bringing in contracting, we're talking about bringing in product management, a whole different set of people that are involved in these engagements. The second piece that I'm going to focus on is implementation strategy. So what does it mean to do something like this? This is a big change. It changes the way a sales rep is going to actually deliver a quote to a customer. And so what is it that we're trying to do in this process, and how are we going to make this happen? That's going to be a key part of this discussion. And then finally, don't forget that this is an organizational change. Everybody thinks of this as a system deployment. It's far from that. It's a lot more complex. The final solution is a system that supports a much larger business transformation. So with that, let me hand it off to Edwin. He'll take over and he'll give you a little more in the details of how we make this happen.
Thanks, Bhavit.
Sorry.
All right, so as Bhavit said, I'm going to kind of walk us through these 3 considerations in a little bit more detail. So as Bhavit said, CPQ, and as I'm sure many of you know, CPQ is kind of a large, complex project. So where do you start? Well, as with most big, complex projects, you start with building the right team. And really what we've seen that really drives success is a team that consists of 3 main parts: management, your business SMEs, and your technical experts. On the management side, the most important piece is your executive sponsor. This is the person who's not only responsible for the success of the project, but will also empower your team to make the hard decisions that will actually transform your business. On the business subject matter expert side, you want to identify the users that are involved within your business processes that are either impacted by or will impact CPQ. These are the users that will tell you what the current state of the processes are and what their key pain points are day to day. From a CPQ perspective, that typically means we're talking about sales and sales operations, product and pricing management, legal and contractual execution, and order fulfillment. Your technical experts. One thing that Bhavit just alluded to that we really want to stress is CPQ really is a different animal than Sales Cloud and even Salesforce. It requires a totally different skill set. And that means 2 things. Number 1, you want to rely on experts that have actually done it, that have real-world implementation experience. They're the ones who are going to guide you on the right path towards best practices and away from the pitfalls. And number 2, and this is on the internal side, you want to make sure that your internal system administrators, the users that are actually going to be maintaining and supporting the system long after you've rolled out CPQ, are not only trained on CPQ, trained on the tool, but are involved throughout the actual implementation. So bring them into your design working sessions so that they know the ins and outs of the solution, so they can support it effectively once you roll out. All right, so now you've built your team. What's next? The next step is not to go in and start building. From my perspective, this next step is the most critical step in a successful CPQ implementation, and that is identifying and prioritizing your key business drivers. And the critical question that we're trying to answer here is, why are you implementing CPQ? What are the outcomes that will define success or failure? Is it reducing time to quote? Is it increasing average deal size? Improving order accuracy? Likely it's all of the above. And the more specific you are here, the better. And the reason this is so critical is because as you're implementing CPQ, what you're going to realize is not all designs are created equal. There are trade-offs between different design options. So to give you a real-world example from previous project of mine, we were a couple of sprints into a development cycle, and the order fulfillment team came to us and said, hey, we have a requirement. We would like if the salespeople filled out these dozen or so configuration attributes as they're configuring their bundles. Now, from a technical standpoint, that's certainly possible. The tool supports that. But it would have drastically increased their time to quote. Because now you have your salespeople chasing all of these questions that their customers may or may not know, and that's not really relevant to generating a quote. So how did we resolve this issue? We went back to the business drivers that we identified and prioritized way back in the beginning before we even started development. And sure enough, order accuracy was on that list. And having them fill out these configuration attributes would have certainly improved order accuracy. But number one on that list was reducing time to quote, because they knew the longer it took to get a quote in their customers' hands, the more likely it was that they were going to lose that business to a competitor. So that made our decision easy for us. So the moral of the story here is, by identifying your key business drivers, you're grounding your decision-making process in the outcomes that you want. All right, moving on to the actual implementation strategy. So as you all probably know, you're kind of in the middle of projects right now. CPQ introduces a lot of new functionality into your Salesforce environment. Price rules, discount schedules, configuration attributes. It's kind of hard to know where to start. The way I like to think about it is CPQ, or implementing CPQ, is a lot like building a house. You don't start with the drywall, right? You start first with the foundation, then you build up the framework, you install your plumbing, your electricity, insulation, and then you get to the drywall. CPQ is a lot like that. From a CPQ perspective, the foundation really is, let me pull these up here. The foundation really is the product catalog. This is what everything else is based on. So you want to spend time really defining what constitutes a product, and then from there you can start to build the relationships between the products through your product options and your features that will constitute a bundle. And from there you layer on your pricing framework, which are directly affected by the way you configure your bundles. And there you move on to your approvals and your quote templates. Now this isn't to say that you can't do a lot of these things in parallel. It just means that you have to take in these interdependencies into account as you're planning your sprints and making sure you're mapping the functionality in a way that makes sense. All right. So 3 cues or guidelines to keep in mind as you're actually developing and building CPQ. Number 1, it's important to remember that CPQ is a managed package, meaning once you install it, it's embedded into your Salesforce environment. Now what that means is that you can leverage the standard data model within Salesforce, meaning your accounts, your account hierarchy, your opportunity, products, and price books. And you can leverage that data throughout the CPQ lifecycle to drive configuration or pricing or pull that data onto your quote templates. But what that also means is that you need to evaluate, and you should do this early on, the state of that data. Is that data in a place that you can use it effectively within CPQ, or is it not? And if not, what are the steps you need to take to get that data in a place where it can effectively be used within CPQ? So number 2, the 80-20 rule. Everyone knows what the 80-20 rule is, but kind of bears reiteration. You don't want to be designing for edge cases. You want to design for the rule, not the exceptions. The last thing you want to do is spend a lot of time, effort, and resources on an overly complex solution that solves exactly 3% of your use cases. All right, so what you want to do is identify the low-hanging fruit, the use cases that deliver the most value with the least complexity. And lastly, maximize configuration. This is another obvious one. You know, everyone has heard the phrase clicks over code, right? But the thing I really want to emphasize here is that CPQ comes with its own set of tools once you install the package, right? So you want to rely on the tools that come with the package to drive your CPQ process. And what that means is, so Salesforce comes with some standard tools, flows, process builder, workflow rules. But within the CPQ module, you want to rely on the CPQ tools. So what that means is, if you're trying to calculate a price, use a price rule, not a workflow rule. If you want to summarize some values, use a summary variable, not a roll-up summary field. And the reason for this, it's kind of hard to predict how the standard Salesforce tools will interact within the CPQ module because it is so different. And the last thing I want to leave you with, and this is harkening back to what Bhavit mentioned earlier, and the tagline here really is, adoption is key. I like to tell my clients that You can design the greatest CPQ tool in the world, but if your users aren't actually using it, it cannot deliver the value that you're looking for. It won't deliver the outcomes that you defined. Remember, implementing CPQ is not just about rolling out a new fancy sales tool. It really is an opportunity for business transformation. It's a chance to simplify, standardize, and streamline your complex business processes. What that means on the ground, though, is that you're introducing a drastic change to the way that your users do business on a day-to-day basis. No more Word, no more Excel, no more ad hoc approvals through Outlook. All right, these are deeply ingrained methodologies within any sales organization, so that's going to be a big change for them. So how do you mitigate that? You get them involved early and often throughout the development cycle. Get them using the tool as soon as possible so that you can get their feedback and incorporate that into your sprints, into your product backlog. And if you do that, you can get them invested in the tool, make them feel like they're part of the process, and transform them ultimately from just users to ambassadors. People that will actually go out to the rest of your organization and advocate for the CPQ tool and get other people excited about it and using it. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Bhavit.
Thanks, Edwin. What I wanted to do was leave you with a set of resources. I think it's really critical, and a lot of people don't realize the amount of resources that Salesforce invests in to make your journey successful. The very first thing up here is a getting started pages. It's our Success Hub, which really focuses on guiding you through the step-by-step process of implementation. I'm going to switch over to it briefly just to show you what kind of material's on there. Here we go. So what we have on here is a series of resources, including things like easy-to-use workbooks and so on, that help you launch the CPQ process, right? It has links to Whoops. Am I not sharing this? Okay, let me see if I can switch over to this. We've lost the screen. All right. Well, I'll continue. So what we have is a set of resources available, which include things such as the Success Hub, which has a set of resources that can be used to provide a series of tools and workbooks and implementation project plans to help you with this process. The second one is the Trailblazer community. That's a really key piece of sort of collaborative resources that you have available to you. Feel free to go join that community. Make sure you connect with others who are going through this process, as well as Salesforce and our partners, and we're there to answer questions for you through that process. And then finally, the last resource here is events. We offer a series of office hours, weekly office hours for our customers to come in, ask us questions. We're available with our experts to answer any questions that you have through that process. So I look forward to seeing you all on those office hours as you go through this process. And then finally, a little plug for our CPQ keynote here. On Wednesday at 1 at the Marriott Marquis, we have the CPQ keynote. That's going to be hosted with Hitachi and Kronos, and they're going to talk about their journey to CPQ. So feel free to join us then, and we'll see you then. Thank you so much.